Okay, let's unpack this. In a world that often feels like, well, constant competition, right?
Hmm.
Where every interaction can subtly, or sometimes not so subtly, feel like a zero-sum game. Someone wins, someone else has to lose. What if there was a profoundly different way to operate?
Yeah, different approach entirely.
A way to navigate relationships, business deals, personal growth, even those big global challenges that consistently leads to mutual benefit, not just for you, but for everyone involved.
Indeed, and that's exactly what we're diving into today. The fourth habit from that foundational work, the 7 habits of highly effective people.
Right. Habit 4, think win-win.
Which, at first glance, it might sound like just another negotiation tactic, something you pull out when you need to make a deal.
Sure, like a tool in the toolbox.
But as our sources really reveal,
Mhm.
I think win-win is far more profound than just a technique. It's really a total paradigm shift,
Yeah.
a fundamental philosophy that redefines how we approach human interaction, how we seek success that actually lasts.
That's right. So our mission today is to explore why this approach, and it demands deep personal character, a genuine commitment to others, why it's actually the only truly sustainable path, especially in our increasingly interdependent world.
Definitely.
We want to show you how to move from that mindset of scarcity, the idea that the pie is fixed, to one of abundance, where you can actually create new value for everyone. You'll get a powerful framework, something actionable, for turning potential conflict into real collaboration and building those high-trust relationships that honestly make everything else possible, personally, professionally, everywhere.
And we'll see how adopting this mindset, it radically shifts our understanding of competition itself.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the very nature of our relationships, how we lead, how we communicate within any organization, whether it's a small team or, a huge corporation.
Yeah.
We've got a fascinating collection of sources to guide us on this deep dive. Things spanning foundational principles of human behavior, some cutting-edge insights on leadership, practical strategies for organizational dynamics. It's really about recognizing that in this connected world, true success, for one, often requires success for many. It's not isolated anymore.
Okay, let's get into it. So, segment 1, understanding the win-win paradigm. Beyond the battleground, let's start right at the heart of this idea. Think win-win.
Right.
Now, for many of us, like you said, the immediate thought might jump to a negotiation table, maybe 2 parties trying to get the best deal. And win-win just sounds like a polite way of saying, okay, let's make sure neither person feels completely ripped off.
Yeah, a sort of minimal baseline.
But our primary source, the 7 habits, it tells us pretty quickly this isn't just a strategy for one transaction. It's much, much bigger. It's described as a principle.
A principle, exactly.
A way of seeing the world that underpins all effective interpersonal leadership. It goes way beyond just negotiation tactics. It's about a foundational mindset, a core operating philosophy.
And what's truly fascinating here, and I think often overlooked, is just how deeply ingrained those competitive paradigms can be. Even when we consciously say we want cooperation. Our source shares this really compelling anecdote, you might remember it, about a company president. He was genuinely struggling with what he saw as a lack of cooperation among his people. He even called them selfish.
Right, I remember that.
He sincerely said he wanted cooperation. But if you look closely at the system he had actually put in place, well, it was driving intense individual competition.
Ah, you're talking about that story with the chart where he had the managers depicted as racehorses,
I think it's that.
neck and neck, competing fiercely for a trip to Bermuda.
That's the one. He's literally standing there telling his team, we need to work together more collaboratively.
Well, pointing at a chart that screams only one winner.
Precisely. It's almost comical, isn't it, that direct contradiction? But it perfectly illustrates a really common, often insidious problem.
Yeah, it does.
Because the core issue, the source argues, wasn't the people's inherent selfishness. It was the flawed paradigm they were operating in. The president was trying, essentially, to reap the fruits of cooperation from a paradigm of competition.
You can't get there from here.
You really can't.
Yeah.
And this highlights a critical, sometimes painful insight. Our results, whether personal or organizational, they flow directly from our underlying beliefs about how the world actually works. Not just our stated goals or, our good intentions.
Right.
When individual efforts aren't explicitly directed toward common, shared goals, something Peter Drucker also talked about extensively, it inevitably leads to friction, frustration, conflict. It's a complete destructive disconnect between the desired outcome and the actual systems and mindsets in place. And think about it, listener. How often do you encounter situations like that? Maybe at work, maybe in a volunteer group, maybe even within family dynamics.
Oh, definitely.
where the stated goal is one thing, but the incentives, the unspoken rules, the underlying culture, it subtly, or maybe not so subtly, encourages the exact opposite. It happens more than we realize.
It really does. And it's not just about avoiding win-lose or lose-lose. The source also mentioned something I found really interesting. Compromise is described as a low form of win-win.
Yes, that's such a crucial distinction.
Because we often praise compromise, right? It sounds like a good thing, a mature way to resolve conflict. But if it's a low form, what does that really tell us about true win-win?
That's where many people misunderstand the concept, I think. Compromise often means both parties give something up to meet somewhere in the middle.
Right, you split the difference.
Exactly. You split the difference, leaving neither side fully satisfied. It's fundamentally about dividing a fixed pie, where everyone concedes a portion. But true win-win, it aims for something far greater. It seeks a solution that genuinely benefits all parties involved. Not by sacrificing, but by finding ways to actually expand the pie entirely, creating new value rather than just splitting up what's already there.
Okay, so if compromise isn't true win-win, if it's just meeting in the middle, potentially leaving everyone feeling a bit shortchanged, how do we practically move beyond that, especially when the stakes are high and resources initially seem finite? Can you give us maybe a tangible example?
Yeah, that's the challenge and the real art of win-win. Let's take a common business example. Imagine two departments, say marketing and product development. They're fighting over a limited budget for a critical new initiative.
Happens all the time.
All the time. A traditional compromise might be splitting the budget 50-50,
Right.
which leaves both feeling they don't have quite enough to really execute their vision properly.
Yeah, under-resourced.
But a win-win approach would involve digging deeper, asking questions like, okay, what's the ultimate objective we're both trying to achieve for the company here? What if we redesign the project? Or collaborated to find new ways to leverage existing resources? Or maybe even look for external partners.
Broadening the scope.
Right. Could we find a way so that both our core goals could be fully funded? Maybe even discover some untapped synergy between our initiatives that makes the whole thing stronger. It completely shifts the conversation.
From dividing to creating.
Exactly. From a zero-sum split of a fixed resource to a value creation brainstorm. And this is precisely where concepts like, say, blue ocean strategy become incredibly relevant. It's not just about finding new markets out there. It's also about finding new ways to collaborate internally and externally to achieve gains you couldn't imagine before.
Right.
Creating a new space where the old competition almost becomes irrelevant because you've built something entirely new.
That's a profound thought. Because we often associate intense competition with innovation, with progress. We think it's the engine of capitalism.
Right, the conventional wisdom.
But this suggests there's a point where it actually becomes counterproductive, maybe even destructive.
Yeah.
Are we saying all competition is inherently bad, or is there a key distinction here?
That's an excellent clarification. It's really about redefining competition itself. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Peter Thiel in 0 to 1, he makes this provocative point. Capitalism and competition are opposites.
Opposites? How so?
His argument is that under perfect competition, all profits get competed away. It pushes companies towards becoming commodities, towards minimal margins. This intense, unfettered competition, far from being purely beneficial, can actually destroy value because everyone's just focused on battling for existing market share.
Instead of creating new value or new market.
Exactly. It becomes a race to the bottom, not really an ascent towards genuine innovation.
So it's not the healthy rivalry that pushes us to improve, but that kind of cutthroat winner-take-all mentality that eventually leaves everyone worse off.
Precisely. And in those kinds of environments, competition can sadly devolve. Like Nudge illustrates how less scrupulous competition can exploit human behavioral biases.
Can you give an example of that?
Think about some of the subprime mortgage lending practices we saw years ago. Lenders weren't necessarily offering the best deal for the customer based on their long-term financial health.
No.
They were often leveraging things like people's optimism bias, our tendency to overestimate positive outcomes, or maybe present bias, focusing on short-term benefits over long-term risks, or even just a lack of financial literacy, pushing people into high-risk products they couldn't really afford.
That's a classic win-lose.
Absolutely textbook win-lose, one party actively preying on the other's vulnerabilities for short-term gain. Totally antithetical to genuine win-win.
Okay.
Now, in stark contrast, you have Blue Ocean strategy championing what they call value innovation.
Value innovation.
Yeah, it's created where a company's actions favorably affect both its cost structure and its value proposition to buyers simultaneously. It's not about competing better in existing markets, it's about creating entirely new market-space blue oceans.
How do they do that?
By consciously eliminating and reducing the factors an industry competes on, and at the same time, raising and creating elements the industry has never offered. This can be seen as creating a new, vast win-win space for the company and its customers,
Sure.
expanding the pie for everyone by generating new demand rather than just fighting over the existing slices.
That makes sense. Creating a whole new game, essentially. Okay, so let's move into segment 2, building the foundation, character, trust, and relationships. If win-win is this whole philosophy, not just a tactic, what's its bedrock?
Good question.
Our source points unequivocally to character and relationships. And it introduces this really fascinating concept, the emotional bank account. Most listeners probably know the basic idea, but let's go deeper. What does it really mean for our daily interactions?
You're right to push deeper, because while the concept is widely known, its profound implications are often underestimated. Most people get the analogy. Like a financial bank account, you make deposits, you make withdrawals.
Simple enough.
But what's often missed is just how incredibly sensitive this account is, and how small, consistent actions have this outsized impact. The source emphasizes that little kindnesses and courtesies are so important. These aren't grand gestures, necessarily. They're the steady, vital deposits.
Just everyday stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And conversely, even seemingly minor things, small discourtesies, little unkindnesses, little forms of disrespect, they make large withdrawals. And the balance in this emotional bank account, it directly relates to the level of trust between people. A high balance means high trust. Communication's smoother, collaboration's easier, understanding is more forgiving, openness feels natural.
Makes sense.
But a low balance, it immediately triggers defensiveness, resistance, suspicion, a complete breakdown in effective interaction. It's not just a ledger, it's like the barometer of psychological safety and relational health.
I can definitely see how those small actions add up. I remember once I was so focused on a tight deadline, I completely forgot a small favor I'd promised a colleague. Just helping them proofread something, really minor in the grand scheme. It felt like a small slip to me, an oversight. But I could tell later it was a huge withdrawal for them, a real hit to their trust in my reliability.
Yeah.
And it took weeks of genuine, intentional effort, not just apologies, to rebuild that balance. It really hammered home how even seemingly small discourtesies can land heavily because they speak volumes about reliability and respect.
That's an excellent, very relatable example. It highlights exactly that point. Sometimes our intentions just don't match the impact. And we need to be incredibly sensitive to the other person's perspective, especially when our own focus might be, elsewhere.
Yeah.
The source gives another very poignant anecdote. A father on an outing with his sons. He describes focusing intensely on Sean, his younger son, who'd fallen asleep, picking him up, carrying him, covering him with his coat because it was cold. A truly well-intentioned, loving act, right?
Absolutely.
But in doing so, he completely neglected Stephen's feelings. His older son, who was awake the whole time, walking alongside them. The father realized later his well-intentioned effort wasn't seen as a deposit by Stephen at all.
Oh.
In fact, it led to tears, feelings of being overlooked. Despite the father's pure intentions toward Sean, it's such a vivid illustration of how even seemingly altruistic actions, if they're not attuned to the unique needs and feelings of all involved, can inadvertently make a withdrawal from someone else's emotional account.
That really hits home. And this consistent trust built through these careful, consistent deposits, it becomes the absolute prerequisite for genuine influence, doesn't it? Not the manipulative kind, but real positive influence.
Absolutely. The stronger your character, your integrity, your genuine commitment to win-win, the more substantial your emotional bank account with others becomes. And consequently, the more powerful and positive your influence will be. This isn't about manipulation or transactional quid pro quo stuff. It's the real test of what our sources call interpersonal leadership. It's transformational, not just transactional. It's about elevating the very nature of the relationship itself, allowing both people to grow and contribute authentically. And think about emotional intelligence here. Daniel Goleman's work, Leadership That Gets Results, emphasizes that successful leaders excel in key competencies. Self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, social skill. All of these are utterly vital for building and maintaining that trust, which is really the foundational currency of influence in a win-win world.
And it extends beyond just one-on-one, right?
Definitely. Look at Team of Teams by General McChrystal. It highlights that within a complex interdependent team like modern special forces, or increasingly, many businesses, every individual needs to know every other individual in order to build trust and maintain that common purpose. This just underscores how essential trust is, not just for individual success, but for any collective effort to truly succeed, especially in environments that demand agility and shared responsibility.
It's also not just about what others do to us or for us. It's about our own proactive role in managing these
Yeah.
relationships. Taking responsibility for relationships. I think it was HBR's 10 must-reads on managing yourself that stresses this. It means actively accepting others as unique individuals, knowing their strengths, their preferred ways of working, their values. This isn't just about being nice, it's about being profoundly effective.
That's a critical and often overlooked point. Managing oneself, a key piece in that HBR collection, explicitly states that to be truly effective in any collaborative environment, you have to know the strengths, the performance modes, and the values of your coworkers.
Moving beyond the superficial.
Exactly. It's about genuine understanding. And crucially, it also emphasizes the reciprocal importance of communicating your own goals, your work style, your expectations to others.
Ah, the two-way street.
Precisely. That kind of proactive transparency, sharing how you work best, what you need, it's a massive, consistent deposit in the emotional bank account. It builds clarity, reduces friction.
Yeah, I can see that.
And think about this powerful, maybe slightly confronting question that the effective executive advises leaders, and really individuals too, to regularly ask their colleagues, what do I do that wastes your time without contributing to your effectiveness?
Wow, that takes courage to ask.
It really does, but it shows an extraordinary proactive approach to fostering positive relationships. You're actively identifying and addressing potential friction points. You're demonstrating a commitment to mutual effectiveness, not just your own output. It's about actively building that shared understanding that is absolutely foundational to achieving win-win outcomes.
Okay, so character and trust are the foundation. Let's move to segment 3. Empathic communication, the key to understanding. Building on that trust, the source emphasizes empathic listening as an absolute cornerstone of win-win interactions, and it challenges our natural inclination.
Oh, definitely.
Which, if we're really honest with ourselves, is often to be formulating our brilliant response while the other person is still talking.
This is the crux of it, isn't it? And where it gets really interesting, because seek first to understand. It sounds simple, but it's such a profound, almost counterintuitive shift in paradigm.
Yeah, sir.
Because our natural, deeply ingrained tendency is the exact opposite. We seek first to be understood. Most people, the source argues, listen with the intent to reply, not with the genuine, deep intent to truly understand the other person.
We're just waiting for our turn.
We are. We're filtering everything through their own paradigms, reading their autobiography into other people's lives. We project our own experiences, our needs, our desires, our interpretations onto others. We assume we know what they're feeling or what they need based on our own past, without truly pausing to listen to their unique story, their perspective.
This is such a huge insight into how often we misinterpret communication, isn't it? We project our own stuff onto others, making genuine connection incredibly difficult. The Course gives another clear example here, right? The father who couldn't understand his teenage son.
Yes, that one's powerful too.
The father's lament was, "My son just won't listen to me at all." But the insight offered was that to truly understand the son, the father needed to listen to him, not the other way around. It's such a powerful reversal of how we usually think about communication problems. It highlights that deep-seated need to be heard first.
Exactly. We frequently, unconsciously often, prescribe our own glasses for everyone with whom we interact. And this creates an immediate barrier to genuine understanding. It makes it fundamentally impossible to build a true win-win scenario.
Impossible.
Well, because if you haven't truly grasped the other person's unique situation and feelings, their underlying motivations, their deepest concerns, their hopes, how can you possibly craft a solution that genuinely works for both of you? You're essentially trying to solve a puzzle without seeing all the pieces.
What, you're guessing?
You're guessing based on your own picture. And think about it, listener. How often do you find yourself formulating your response, mentally rehearsing what you'll say next, while someone else is still speaking? It's an incredibly common habit.
Guilty as charged sometimes.
We all are, probably. But that habit directly undermines empathic listening. And by extension, it profoundly limits your ability to collaboratively create win-win outcomes. It's a self-sabotaging communication pattern, really.
So this isn't just about hearing the words. It's about truly hearing the person, their emotions, their underlying needs. And this empathetic approach, it also extends to how we fundamentally view others, doesn't it? Beyond their current behavior.
Yes, precisely.
It's about seeing beyond how they are right now to who they could be, their potential.
Exactly. This empathetic perspective is truly transformative. The source quotes the great German writer, Goethe, who said, "Treat a man as he is, and he will remain as he is. Treat a man as he can and should be, and he will become as he can and should be."
Wow, that's powerful.
It's profound, isn't it? And this idea allows us to use imagination rather than memory in our relationships. We refuse to label people based on past actions or perceived limitations or some static view of their capabilities. Instead, we actively choose to see them in new, fresh ways, recognizing and nurturing their inherent, often untapped potential. It's about looking past the present snapshot to the future version of themselves.
That's a truly transformative way to approach relationships. It consciously moves us away from judgment and those fixed labels towards genuine support and belief in growth. It sounds like that itself would be a huge deposit in the emotional bank account.
And it absolutely is. This proactive, empathetic approach is exactly what builds and sustains a high emotional bank account. When people feel genuinely understood, valued, and importantly that you believe in their potential, they become far more open to influence, open to collaboration, open to engaging in a win-win process because they deeply trust your intentions.
It changes the whole dynamic.
Completely. And this resonates powerfully with Ansela Duckworth's work in Grit. When she defines genius, she actually reorients it away from just natural talent. She defines genius as working toward excellence ceaselessly with every element of your being.
Focusing on the effort and development.
Exactly. It encourages seeing potential and growth in individuals, emphasizing effort and development over just innate ability, which aligns perfectly with that Goethe quote and fosters an environment where win-win becomes not just possible, but the natural mode of interaction, because everyone is seen as capable of growth and contribution.
Okay, this is making so much sense. Let's move to segment 4. Operationalizing win-win, leadership and agreements. This shift you mentioned earlier from just transactional interactions to a more transformational leadership approach, it sounds like it could reshape entire organizations, not just individual interactions.
Absolutely.
It's moving from simply managing tasks and outputs to truly influencing people, building culture, fostering that collective growth.
Exactly. When the philosophy of win-win is genuinely sought, when it's deeply understood and, importantly, embedded into the very fabric of an organization, it doesn't just change individuals. It transforms the relationship itself and, by extension, the entire organizational culture.
Okay.
And our source highlights win-win agreements as the natural, practical outflow of these high-trust relationships. These agreements, they're not just formal documents. They represent a fundamental shift in the paradigm of how people work together productively, moving it from that traditional vertical to horizontal dynamic.
Top-down versus side-by-side.
Right. From hovering supervision to self-supervision, and from positioning for advantage to being partners in success. It's a truly collaborative approach where everyone is genuinely invested in mutual shared outcomes, not just guarding their own piece of the pie.
So these agreements are more than just contracts or a list of tasks. They're about shared commitment and a really clear understanding of what success looks like for everyone involved. What makes a good win-win agreement? Beyond just defining outcomes, what specific elements do leaders and teams need to nail down to ensure they truly foster collaboration and not just, surface-level compliance?
That's where the rubber truly meets the road. A robust win-win agreement, as our source material outlines it, usually needs 5 key interconnected elements to be crystal clear.
Okay, what are they?
First, desired results. What exactly needs to be accomplished and by when? This isn't just about activity, it's specific, measurable outcomes.
Got it. Number 1, results.
Second, guidelines. What are the principles, the policies, maybe specific parameters within which these results have to be achieved? This sets the boundaries, the how.
Okay, guidelines.
Third, resources. What human, financial, organizational, or technical support is actually available to achieve these results? This clarifies what support people can expect, what they have to work with.
Makes sense. Resources.
Fourth, accountability. How will performance be measured? How will it be evaluated and reported? This creates essential transparency.
Right. Accountability.
And finally, number 5, consequences.
Yeah.
What will happen both positively and negatively based on the results achieved. This closes the loop, makes it real.
Consequences. Okay, so desired results, guidelines, resources, accountability, and consequences.
Exactly. Without clarity and genuine mutual agreement on all five of those, even the best intentions can falter. And that's often precisely where the emotional bank account starts seeing those debilitating withdrawals we talked about. Misunderstandings creep in, expectations aren't met, trust erodes.
That's a really powerful framework, and to underscore the importance of that underlying trust and character, not just the agreement itself, the source gives this very striking, almost frightening example of what happens when the spirit of win-win is completely absent.
Yes, the malicious obedience example.
It describes Great Britain being brought twice to its knees because the train conductors were maliciously obedient in following all the rules and procedures written on paper. They weren't defying orders.
No, quite the opposite.
They were following them to the letter, but without any spirit of cooperation. With that deeply low emotional bank account, their literal adherence became this incredibly destructive force.
That example perfectly illustrates the devastating consequences when the win-win philosophy is absent, even when formal compliance is technically there. Malicious obedience, sometimes people call it work to rule, is where individuals or groups follow all the rules and procedures exactly, meticulously, but intentionally, without the spirit of cooperation. Often the goal is to sabotage or dramatically slow down operations.
It's weaponized compliance.
It really is. And it thrives in environments where trust is shattered, where the emotional bank account is deeply in the red, where people feel their needs are consistently ignored or dismissed. It's such a powerful testament that you can have all the rules and agreements in the world, but if the underlying character and relationship are broken, true progress, true effectiveness is impossible.
That's a stark reminder. An agreement in letter means very little without the character and relationship base to sustain it in spirit. It shows just how devastating the absence of win-win can be.
And it reinforces that trust and a genuine win-win mindset are absolutely essential. Think about it. If the emotional bank account is high and you ask for support on a decision without maybe giving a full, lengthy explanation, perhaps because things are urgent, the other person, trusting your judgment and your shared purpose, will likely support it enthusiastically. They'll work diligently to make it succeed.
Yeah, they give you the benefit of the doubt.
Exactly. But if that emotional bank account is low, they might agree outwardly, nod their head, but lack any real enthusiasm. Or worse, they might engage in that malicious obedience, precisely following instructions while subtly undermining the whole effort through a lack of initiative, commitment, or even active subversion. The spirit of the agreement is totally lost, and the organization suffers immensely.
So what does this mean for leaders then? How do they not just implement win-win agreements using those 5 elements, but how do they proactively cultivate this environment where these agreements can actually thrive, where malicious obedience becomes unthinkable?
Well, leaders have to proactively seek to understand their coworkers' strengths, their performance modes, their values. Like we said, this isn't just a nicety. It's a strategic imperative for effective leadership and for fostering a win-win environment. And simultaneously, they have to ensure they communicate their own expectations clearly and frequently. It's that two-way street again. Managing your boss and the effective executive both emphasize that while subordinates bear responsibility for finding out what the boss's expectations are, leaders also bear a profound responsibility to facilitate that clarity.
So how does a leader do that practically?
Well, it might involve managers drafting detailed memos, outlining key aspects of work, expectations, resources, and then following up with face-to-face discussions to really surface expectations, ensure mutual understanding, and get alignment on those 5 elements of a win-win agreement.
Making it explicit.
Making it explicit. And a truly effective executive, for instance, will regularly ask that courageous question we mentioned, what do I do that wastes your time without contributing to your effectiveness? That kind of question opens a vital dialogue, identifies potential friction points, and demonstrates a deep commitment to the other person's success, which is a powerful driver of a win-win culture.
And this ties back to emotional intelligence again, I assume.
Directly. Leadership that gets results identifies self-regulation, the ability to control one's own emotions and impulses and social skill, the ability to manage relationships and build networks as key competencies for leaders who want to consistently foster a true win-win environment. It's really about consciously building an ecosystem of mutual benefit, not just managing a hierarchy.
Okay, this connects a lot of dots. Let's zoom out a bit for our final segment, segment 5, win-win in the broader context, individual and organizational success. How does this think win-win philosophy and all these principles we've discussed, character, trust, empathy, agreements, how does it apply to overall success, both for individuals striving for personal fulfillment and for organizations aiming for sustainable prosperity? It feels like it has implications far beyond just single interactions.
It absolutely does, profoundly so. Our source material highlights the critical importance of balance and renewal across four fundamental dimensions of our nature: the physical, the spiritual, the mental, and the social emotional.
The four dimensions of renewal.
Right. And the key insight is that neglecting any one area, whether you're an individual or an entire organization, inevitably negatively impacts all the rest. It's an interconnected system.
Okay, so how do those dimensions look for an organization? And what happens if they fall out of balance?
Good question. For an organization, the physical dimension is typically expressed in economic terms: profitability, financial viability, efficient operations, market share, things like that.
The bottom line.
The bottom line, essentially. The mental or psychological dimension deals with the recognition, development, and optimal use of talent, fostering innovation, continuous learning, intellectual capital within the organization.
Okay, talent and learning.
The social-emotional dimension has to do with human relations, fostering a sense of meaning through purpose or contribution, ensuring organizational integrity, creating a positive, high-trust culture.
People and culture.
Exactly. And finally, the spiritual dimension. This relates to the organization's mission, its vision, its core values, its fundamental reason for being, its ethical compass, its contribution to the greater good beyond just making money.
Mission and values. Okay, physical, mental, social, emotional, spiritual.
Right. And the danger comes when there's an imbalance.
So an organization focused only on the economics, the physical dimension, for example.
Yeah.
You mentioned it earlier, they'll likely suffer from negative synergy, right? Things like interdepartmental rivalries, politicking. It's not sustainable, even if they're making money in the short term.
Exactly. An organization whose only thrust is economic, as the source puts it, will inevitably create a culture riddled with that negative synergy.
Yeah.
You see interdepartmental rivalries, defensive and protective communication, politicking, and masterminding. While making money is essential, the saying goes, we can't live without eating, but we don't live to eat. It's not a sufficient sole reason for an organization's existence. Focusing exclusively on economic profitability without consciously nurturing its people, their growth, its culture, or its purpose will lead to burnout, high turnover, a lack of innovation, and ultimately a loss of long-term viability.
And the reverse is also true. Too much focus elsewhere.
Yes. Conversely, an organization may be focused exclusively on the social, emotional, or spiritual aspects without robust economic criteria, might lose efficiency and viability in the marketplace because it lacks a clear measure of its effectiveness and its sustainability. True, sustainable organizational effectiveness requires a wise, conscious, and balanced development of all four dimensions. Any dimension that's neglected will ultimately create a drag on the others, leading to chronic problems, eroding trust, and making genuine win-win almost impossible to achieve consistently.
It really challenges that idea that any single focus, even a positive one like culture, is enough for holistic, enduring success. You need all four.
You really do. It's a system.
Okay, and what about for us as individuals? How does this idea of win-win tie into our personal definitions of success and contribution? Many of us strive for success, but what does that really mean in a win-win framework, especially when we consider that success, in the conventional sense, can feel elusive for many people?
That's a really important question for individual fulfillment. Managing oneself, again from Drucker, offers this insightful idea. In a knowledge society, expecting everyone to be a huge success in the traditional outward sense, becoming CEO or a famous innovator, is often an impossibility. There's an acknowledgement that for a great many people, there might be, at best, an absence of failure in their primary career path.
That sounds a bit bleak.
It might sound bleak initially, but the crucial point is what comes next. What is vitally important, both for the individual's fulfillment and for fostering a win-win mindset more broadly, is the need to find an area where they can contribute, make a difference, and be somebody.
Okay, so find a place to make an impact.
Exactly. This often means finding a second area. Maybe it's a second career later in life, maybe a parallel career pursued concurrently, maybe a significant social venture, nonprofit work, community leadership, something that offers a genuine opportunity for being a leader, for being respected, for being a success on different terms.
So it's a personal win-win.
It's a profound personal win-win. It fulfills that intrinsic human need for contribution, for recognition, for mastery. Even if your primary career doesn't bring you fame or immense fortune, it's about finding where your unique talents and passions can truly serve and generate value, both for yourself and for others around you.
So it's about finding where you can truly thrive and make an impact rather than just chasing a conventional, often narrow definition of success. It's almost like a reorientation of personal resources, a strategic investment in yourself that ultimately benefits your community too.
And an incredibly efficient one, potentially. Managing oneself also emphasizes not wasting excessive effort on trying to shore up areas of low competence, but rather focusing energy on making a competent person into a star performer in their area of strength.
Play to your strengths.
Exactly. It's about strategic allocation of your personal resources, knowing your strengths, and applying them where they can yield the greatest value and impact. It's a principle directly reflected in business concepts like strategic flexibility, allocating resources to the most promising strategic partners or initiatives. Here, you're doing it for yourself. You concentrate your efforts where you can truly make a difference, build on your strengths, and create that mutual benefit.
And this overall philosophy, while the 7 Habits source doesn't explicitly label it the paradigm of abundance, it really points directly to that kind of belief, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Especially when you contrast it with pure competition and that zero-sum thinking we started with.
Right. The underlying message of win-win is fundamentally that there can be enough for everyone. Or, even more powerfully, that value can be created and expanded, rather than just divided up.
Yeah.
It encourages a mindset that constantly seeks to expand possibilities, to enlarge the pie for all stakeholders, rather than seeing life as this limited resource that must be fought over tooth and nail.
And that connects to other big ideas, too.
Definitely. It resonates powerfully with the concept from Built to Last of BHA's Big, Hairy, Audacious Goals. Think about Henry Ford's audacious aim to democratize the automobile. His goal wasn't just to capture existing market share from other tiny automakers of the time.
No, it's much bigger.
It was to create entirely new value, making automobiles accessible to the masses, thereby creating a massive new win-win for millions of people who gained unprecedented mobility, and obviously for his company, which became an industrial giant. It's that powerful vision of value creation that inherently embodies the spirit of abundance.
Okay, so wrapping this all up for our final thoughts in the outro. What does all of this truly mean for you, our listener? Think win-win. It really isn't just some catchy phrase for a clever negotiation tactic.
Not at all.
It's a profound shift in how we approach every single interaction, every relationship, every challenge, every goal. It's about understanding with deep conviction that true, sustainable success isn't built at the expense of others, but rather it's built in genuine, proactive, trust-based collaboration with them, fueled by that paradigm of abundance.
Yeah, this deep dive really shows us that by cultivating strong personal character, by genuinely seeking to understand others through that empathic communication we talked about, and by proactively building those high-trust relationships that foster mutual growth, we can fundamentally transform our personal and professional lives. It's really about cultivating the wisdom to see the potential for mutual benefit in every situation, and then having the courage and the discipline to pursue it, even when that default competitive mindset feels more natural or maybe more immediately gratifying in the short term.
Which leads to a fascinating, maybe even provocative final question for everyone listening. What if the greatest competitive advantage in today's incredibly complex and interconnected world isn't actually about outmaneuvering rivals in a zero-sum game?
Interesting.
What if it's about mastering the art of genuine collaboration and exponential value creation? How might your next difficult conversation, your next challenging project, or even your personal relationships unfold differently if you truly began with that unwavering mindset of win-win, aiming for mutual benefit right from the start instead of just individual victory?
And consider this. If malicious obedience, that weaponized compliance, can bring a country to its knees, as our source so vividly shared, just imagine the inverse. Imagine the immense power of intentional, trust-based collaboration to elevate individuals, teams, entire organizations to levels of success and fulfillment that might have seemed previously unimaginable. The choice to seek mutual benefit, to consciously try to expand the pie rather than just divide it, that choice is always yours to make. And it shapes not just your outcomes, but the very nature of the world you interact with.